Senator Hagerty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Lew, I'd like to turn to an area that you know well. That's Israel's sworn enemy, Iran. I want to ask you a very simple question. Is the security of America, the security of Israel, better or worse if Iran has more funds or less funds?
Senator, I think that my actions have demonstrated that denying Iran funds when they commit malign acts is something that is in our interest. I have sanctioned Iran. I have enforced sanctions on Iran. And the fact that in an agreement to roll back Iran's nuclear program, releasing funds to Iran was part of the bargain, is the way sanctions work. You don't get sovereign countries to change their policy without some concession on the sanctions.
Well, regarding the concessions, I just want to say that Iran, as we know, funds its proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah. Biden administration officials have very recently just admitted this fact. Last week, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said, and I quote, "Iran has provided the lion's share of the funding for the military wing of Hamas." National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, another quote, "Hamas wouldn't have been able to function at all had it not been for propping up by the Iranian regime." Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter both of these quotes for the record.
Without objection, I'll give the senator the additional time. If you're showing a poster, it'd be nice if the committee could see the poster, just
Certainly.
so you know.
Certainly. We have a second one. Can you place that right there, Daniel, in front of the secretary? The other posters, the chairman would like to be able to see it too. Don't you have the second copy of it? Just a moment, Mr. Chairman.
But
That's a different poster.
They're different posters.
Yep, sorry. We'll turn that a bit to show the chairman. It's a very simple poster. What
I have to confess, Senator, I can't read it either, so I don't know exactly.
I'll explain what it is, Mr. Secretary. It's a year-by-year poster showing the revenues going to Iran. It shows what happened when the maximum pressure campaign was imposed. I worked on that maximum pressure campaign, stopping the Japanese from buying Iranian crude. They stopped. We brought their revenues, Iranian revenues, down to below $8 billion. You'll see that in 2020. That's the low point on this chart. Then in 2021, these are the last two bars. 2021 and 2022, you see a dramatic increase in revenues to Iran. Now think about this. In 2020, as the maximum pressure campaign was imposed, it was widely reported that Hamas and Hezbollah were going broke. In 2021, we had the violence from Gaza into Israel, the 11-day war. We've seen what's happened now. So I'm going to come back to my question again and ask, what's changed?
Well, Senator, I can't read it. I can't comment on the specific numbers there. And candidly, it's 7 years.
I'll explain the numbers
in policy. But I can tell you two things. First, what was true when I was at the Department of Treasury and what has been true since, even during the period of maximum pressure, is that Iran has put funding malign activities like support for Hamas terrorism above everything else. And it doesn't cost that much. So they have been bad actors when they've had a lot of oil revenue, when they've had less oil revenue.
I don't doubt that, but the effectiveness of it has been dramatically different based on the impact of the maximum pressure campaign. And again, you can see the magnitude of this chart.
But I was trying to make a slightly different point. If I understand what this chart says, the funds into Iran went down. I'm saying
2020, then 2021 and 22, they've gone up dramatically.
I'm not aware that funding for Hamas and Hezbollah went down. I will get briefed on that.
I think you're aware of the results of it, Mr. Secretary. And in terms of what's changed, I think it's very obvious what's changed. Joe Biden was inaugurated in 2021. The maximum pressure campaign was abandoned. And now a policy of appeasement has been undertaken with Iran. That's what's allowed them to enrich themselves. Let me turn to another area of great concern, and that is the special envoy for Iran, Rob Malley. He's now suspended. His security clearances have been lifted, and he's under federal investigation. Do you know Rob Malley?
I haven't. Yes, I've known him. I haven't talked to him in years.
Did he undertake efforts to quash sanctions enforcement on Iran?
I do not recall Rob Malley having a role in the enforcement of sanctions.
Well, very obviously, something has dramatically changed here. And it's clear to me that the Biden administration's enforcement of sanctions against Iran is every bit as ineffective as the Biden administration's enforcement of our border security. Everything and everyone gets through, and the results have been deadly. I just want to say this. If you're selected to be chief of mission, your number one priority is going to be the safety and security of Americans.
Absolutely.
We've already lost 30 American lives. 13 are held hostage. That needs to be your absolute priority, Mr. Secretary.
Senator, I couldn't agree with you more. And I've said earlier in this hearing, there won't be a day when I wake up where that isn't top of mind.
Well, it is clear to me that this administration does not have our safety and security at interest because of this enrichment of Iran that has allowed this type of behavior to happen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And the chair has been very lenient, well, allowing members to pursue the nuclear issues with Iran. I just would like to point out, we do have a nominee for the Office of Sanctions Coordinator, and I hope that we can get a hearing on that nominee, because I think that would be the appropriate place to talk about sanctions enforcement and previous policies concerning sanction enforcement. So I hope we can get a hearing on that, and I think that would probably be the more appropriate setting for us to deal with the sanction policies. Just pointing that out to my dear friend
Mr.
from
Chairman.
Tennessee.
And with the deepest respect, the chief of mission will be the president's representative in Israel.
Oh, I understand.
And I think the policies are absolutely critical because Israel is in mortal danger, as are Americans. And this funding program that's been allowed to go on is absolutely critical to Iran's ability to fund their proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. We've got to acknowledge this, recognize it, and deal with it. Thank you very much, sir.
Senator Merkley.